What do you think of when you hear the idea that language affects thought? Do you think of news media that try to affect your opinions with rhetorical techniques? Or do you think of the difficulty to express some nuanced meanings in a foreign language? Linguistic relativity is a very broad concept that covers a wide range of phenomena, because the effects of language on thought is ubiquitous. But in the academia, linguistic relativity usually refers to the research field originated from the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. The Sapir-Whorf hypothesis is a summary of the ideas of American linguist Edward Sapir and his student Benjamin Lee Whorf. The central idea is that the structures of language determines the structures of thought and knowledge. The structures of language not only refers to its grammatical structure, but also includes structures on all levels of language, such as word structures, sound structures, and vocabulary. To better comprehend the idea, let's think about the prefix on in English. Every English speaker knows that the prefix on roughly means denial without being taught. But it takes a minute to discriminate the meanings of on in the words unhappy, unseen, and undo. Pause the video now if you want to figure it out yourself. The un and unhappy reverses the meaning of whatever adjectives that follows it, same as in unfair, unable, and unusable. The un and unseen also fits in this definition, but it implies not yet. If something is unseen, it is not yet seen. And while people can go from unhappy to happy and go unhappy again, when something is seen, it cannot be unseen again. Same meanings of on as in unseen are in unnoticed, unused, and unspoken. The first on is usually followed by adjectives, while the second one is usually followed by the perfect form of a verb. For example, in unusable and unnoticeable, the on has the first meaning, while in unused and unnoticed, the on has the second meaning. The last on, as in undo, is also followed by a verb. It means the cancellation of the effects of an action. The same meaning is in unzip, unbox, uncover, and uninstall. To contrast with the second meaning, you cannot cancel the effects of speaking by unspokening, but you can cancel the effects of installing something by uninstalling it. Now, if you think about it, the three meanings are actually quite different, especially the last one. Of course, you can try to find the commonalities among the three meanings, like that they are all related to something negative, opposite, or non existent, but it's hard to generalize them concisely. Since they are not so similar, why does it take a while to discriminate the three meanings? If the words weren't undo and unhappy, but are cancel and depressed, do their meanings still seem related? Probably not to a significant degree. Theoretically, native speakers of English are expected to associate the concept undo or cancel with the concept unhappy or depressed, or feel that they are less different than non-native speakers of English feel. On a linguistic class, our professor quizzed us with distinguishing these three ons. And as one of the few non-native speakers of English in that class, I did it much quicker than the native speakers. In Chinese, the expressions for undo and unhappy doesn't have any common morphemes, so I had no particular reasons to associate the two concepts when speaking Chinese. This is just a straightforward demonstration of what it means by that the structure of language determines the structure of thought and knowledge. There are numerous phenomena like this one. As shown by this example, such phenomena create differences across speakers of different languages. Actually, the original Sapir-Whorf hypothesis is a strong form of linguistic relativity, that is, linguistic determinism. Because language dictates thoughts and knowledge, a different language creates a completely different worldview. As linguistic determinism is almost discarded with the rise of cognitive sciences, which emphasizes the universality of human behavior and cognition, linguistic relativity now usually takes a weaker stance that says language affects thought rather than that language determines thought. Nonetheless, there is still a wide variety of theories of linguistic relativity. What is language like? What is thought like? Through what mechanisms do they interact? What are the important consequences of their interaction? These are all questions on which theorists often disagree with each other. As an attempt to specify what thought and language means, Slobin replaced them with thinking, speaking, and thinking for speaking. The convenience of this definition is that it distinguishes the so-called linguistic thought and non-linguistic thought. The linguistic thought, or the process of thinking for speaking, involves planning speech in a grammatical way, so it's necessarily subjected to the rules of vocabulary of a specific language. This results in a deep-seated training of native speakers of a language to pick up different information than native speakers of another language. For example, English speakers are trained to think about tense in every sentence, while Chinese grammar does not have an asterisk requirement for expressing tense, so tense is usually not included in Chinese speakers' thinking for speaking training. Another example is that many languages have grammatical gender. So speakers of those languages are trained to notice the grammatical gender of an object when thinking for speaking, while Chinese and English speakers do not. Actually, Slobin took a very conservative position on linguistic relativity. While he proposed the thinking for speaking training, he reserved his opinion on whether the training also affects non-linguistic thoughts and whether the influence of one language stays when speaking a different language. The most radical stance on linguistic relativity is linguistic determinism, of which Edward Sapir himself is a great advocate. According to Sapir, humans adjust to reality essentially through language. The reality here not only refers to social realities, but to the whole field of reality, which includes the most basic cognitive categories like space, time, and colors. As said, linguistic determinism is almost discarded by the academia after the rise of cognitive sciences in the 1970s. But there is still a great number of experiments on language's influence on the basic cognitive functions. It was hypothesized that the number of words for colors in a language affected speakers' ability to discriminate colors. This could be explained by the phenomenon in cognition called categorical perception, which says that people do better at discriminating two things when they belong to different categories than when they belong to the same category. When it applies to color perception, it means that in language X, one color belongs to A category and another belongs to B category, then to the speakers, this pair of colors should look more different than another pair that is as different but belongs to the same category. Whether languages have this kind of effect on color perception is still controversial. Some experiments support the hypothesis, while most do not. Nevertheless, there are also many fruitful research on language's effects on the cognition of space and time. While the basic cognitive categories are always subjected to the laws of physics and physiology, language's effect on more abstract thought processes can be very significant. For example, various studies have shown that grammatical gender can affect speakers' mental representation of objects. Grammatical genders are pretty much arbitrary, and different languages often assign different or opposite genders to the same object. In an experiment by Baralaski, Schmidt, and Phillips in 2002, they asked a group of native Spanish speakers and a group of native German speakers to describe a list of objects that has opposite grammatical gender in the two languages. They were asked to write down the top 3 adjectives that came to their mind for each object. The test is done completely in English to avoid the interference of being directly exposed to the words with grammatical genders during the test. The adjectives were then rated by native English speakers as more feminine or more masculine. Neither the Spanish and German-speaking test subjects nor the English-speaking raters were given any hints on the experiment being related to grammatical genders. The result shows that the adjectives rated femininity/masculinity are consistent with the object's grammatical genders in the test subject's native languages. The comparison was striking. For example, keys are masculine in German and feminine in Spanish, while German speakers describe keys as hard, heavy, jagged, metal, serrated, and useful, Spanish speakers describe them as golden, intricate, little, lovely, shiny, and tiny. For bridges, which are feminine in German and masculine in Spanish, German speakers describe them as beautiful, elegant, fragile, peaceful, pretty, and slender, and Spanish speakers describe them as big, dangerous, long, strong, sturdy, and towering. It is clear that mental representations of an object is correlated with the grammatical gender of the object in its subject's native language. However, it is unclear what mechanism is behind the correlation. It could be due to people interpreting grammatical gender as meaningful during language acquisition. It could be language affecting thought in some cognitive processes that is not to the speaker's awareness, or it could be that the culture that speaks the language represent objects by their grammatical gender, for example, in the object's personification in fairy tales, or in the design of the objects themselves. In this series of video, we're going to explore different theories on the spectrum of linguistic relativity. We're going to depart from the theories of Whorf himself, go through perspectives on linguistic relativity from different subject fields, such as sociology, psychology, philosophy, and neuroscience. We're also going to talk about other pioneers and founders in this field. Hit the like button and comment if you enjoyed this video. Please leave in the comment section if there's any particular topic you're interested in, and subscribe to watch the later videos. See you next time.